Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 9:30 here, 9:30 p.m. Calgary, Alberta, and it is Wednesday night, June the 9th. I'm so happy to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. 30-minute internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. I have my chat room open if you want to go sit in there. That's great. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be able to do these shows and continue on. It's just awesome. We were talking on Monday night. We were looking at the Child Abuse Handbook, which is compiled by Donna Shear and Sandra Potter from Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. It's a free PDF download, and I hope everyone will get their copy. It's free, and it's full of some great information. They went through all the information that they could gather regarding child abuse, really statistics, intervention, prevention, links and resources and whatnot, and they compiled this Child Abuse Handbook. And Donna Shear, she's the president of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. She's also a best-selling author and a mother and a wife, and she's just working hard all the time, just around the clock, really. And Sandra Potter, she's the CEO and founder of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and she is also an author and a mother, and she just gives her whole entire life to Dreamcatchers for Abused Children and her family, and they work so incredibly hard, and I hope everyone will take a look at this handbook that they've compiled and really go through it. It's awesome. I have my copy, and I'm happy that I've got my copy. I've actually been through it a few times, and I've learned a lot from it. There's some great information on there, and even if a person just reads through it one time, they would have a pretty good understanding of all the different types of signs and symptoms of abuse, whether it's physical, sexual, emotional, psychological, verbal. You would definitely have the base knowledge that you need to know what the signs and symptoms are of all the different kinds of abuse and how to report it, prevention, intervention, taking a look at some of the statistics out there. And then, there's all kinds of resource numbers for the different states in the United States. And there's all kinds of links and resources there, telephone numbers to the local, each state's local, pretty much the authority regarding child abuse, right? So it's just a great resource, and I hope everyone will get a copy of it. So I wanted to continue on looking at it, and we're on for half an hour, and I always say this on every show. I'm not a professional. I don't hold any counseling certificates, therapist certificates. Really, I'm just a person who pays to do my own blog talk show because I fight for child rights. I stand up for child rights. I'm a child rights advocate, fighting against child abuse, right? And so that's what I will do for the rest of my life. So I study human rights, I study child rights, and I wanted to just to pass the information off to people that I find. And so, you have to listen at your own discretion, and the topics of abuse are really quite sensitive for a lot of people. And so you want to make sure you're okay to listen to the show. And then if it makes you uncomfortable, you have to turn it off. It's your discretion. And also, if you're a young person under the age of 18, I really ask that you have permission to listen to this show. And so it really is because I'm standing up for child rights, you know what I mean, and to protect children. And there's so much crazy stuff going on online with child sexual predators. They're everywhere. And they are trying to get a hold of children all the time. And they will do whatever they can to get a hold of children. They will manipulate, they will lie, they'll tell people that they'll tell children that they're their own age group, and they'll say that they love to skateboard, go to the mall, go to the movies. They'll know all the up-to-date music. They'll do anything that they can to get a hold of a child. They'll pretend that they're a peer, and then they will try to talk you into giving them personal information, like where you live, your address, your phone number, or they'll give you their phone number and have you phone them. And then, of course, they have your phone number. So it's really important to get the information on how to stay safe online, how to protect yourself, online from child sexual predators, and let someone know what you're doing online. It's so important because you could save your life. You could save your friends' lives if you tell them. And it's so important for you to be aware that this is actually going on. And so that's why I ask everyone who's under the age of 18 to just, especially younger, to have permission to listen to the show, because there's a lot of adult content on here, and I just think that you'd be doing yourself a favor and me a favor by letting someone that you trust and you care about, that cares about you, to know what you're doing online. It's so important, right? I just want to see children's lives saved, and that's what when I wake up in the morning and when I go to bed at night, that's what I'm thinking about, is how are we going to save these children's lives. And how are we going to protect these children? How are we going to, as a society, stop child abuse, prevent child abuse, and really protect children and stand up for child rights? And so that's why I would ask that you would do the same and give me the common courtesy and have permission to listen to the show. So we'll get right on with the topic here. This is the Child Abuse Handbook, and you can find it at www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com, and it's a free PDF download. You can also get it from lulu.com. Donna Shear and Sandra Potter, they have Shear and Potter Books. It's their own publishing company. It's on Lulu. You can locate them at lulu.com, and you can find it there, as well as you can get the link from the website, our domain website, www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and that's so happy to stand with them, let me tell you. And so you want to check out our website. Some great information on there, updated daily, and lots of good information, headlines, what's actually happening out there, and good resources and references and whatnot for people who are looking for information. It's kind of like a one-stop place, where you can get all kinds of awesome information. So I hope you will check it out. And on Monday night we left off talking about prevention, and we went through intervention intervention or intervening on behalf of a child, and now we're looking at prevention. And they were saying, parents really needed to teach their children the difference between acceptable and unacceptable touching, and to trust their instincts about people, educate themselves about the signs of abuse so they'll be able to detect it, in educating their children, right? And there's just all kinds of things that parents can do to help protect their children. And this is so important, right? If I was a parent, I don't have any children. I wish that I did. I lost my only baby, and she was a miscarriage. So sad, quite sadly, I have not had any children, and I wish that I could have had children. And I know if I did have children, I'd want to know the latest information regarding how to keep my kids safe, because even with the information, children are still at risk. But as long as the parents have the education, they can try to help protect their children. That's the whole issue, right? I mean, children are still at risk, even with the education that we have out there today, and all the organizations that are working to help prevent these things from happening to children, child sexual abuse and whatnot, and other types of abuse, right? They're still at risk, but they stand a better chance if the parents are educated and can help their children, and if the parents actually care enough to become educated and get the information to help their children, right? So important. And I think it helps build a bond between the parents and the children, when the children actually know that the parents care and love them so dearly that they don't want them to end up a victim, of a child sexual predator. And eventually later on, after the teen years go away and these kids grow up, they're going to thank you for it. They're going to thank these parents who took the time to try to help them and to keep them safe, right? Because kids know the truth. They know the difference between parents that care and parents that don't. And it's so important for parents to be there for their kids all the way through and help them and protect them as much as they can. And so there's all kinds of good information on prevention. And we went through part of it. We were talking about understanding that child abuse means any kind of harm done to a child and does not just mean sexual abuse. Number 2, teach your children that there is a difference between good and bad touches. Explain what these are. And you can get this information on quite a few websites now, Good Touch, Bad Touch. And I know that in schools they're actually doing, presentations on it. Maybe there's groups going around doing presentations on it, and it's very important. All age appropriate, of course, and that's the whole issue. There are certain ages where you would start to begin to talk about this stuff, right? But every parent knows their child the best, or they should. And you would know, and you if you get the information, you'd be able to tell whether or not it's a good time to introduce some of this stuff to your child, depending on how old they are. And it says, explain that no one has the right to hurt your child or touch them or hurt him or her in any private areas or touch them in any way that makes them feel uncomfortable, right? And then you need to tell your children that it's okay to tell you, right, as a parent. Kids need to know that they should come to you if something like this happens. That they needed to tell you if someone is trying to touch them, or trying to that makes them uncomfortable and trying to touch them, they need to know that they can go directly to their parents, and that their parents will do everything they can to keep them safe and to help them. So important. It says, tell your children that the words they need to remember are no, go, and yell, and tell. If anyone touches them in a way they don't like or tries to get them to go with a stranger or a person they don't feel comfortable with, the kids should always say no. and go away from the person or situation as quickly as possible. Use their danger voice to yell. And a danger voice they were talking about is a very loud, low-pitched yell that gets attention immediately. It's not a high-pitched screech. It should never be used in any other situation, because a lot of the times when kids are playing, they will screech really loudly because, they're having fun, and they screech really high-pitched screeches. So sometimes if you hear a child screeching, you think they're playing with a group of kids or something, right? So if you teach your child to use another voice for a sign of alert, to alert someone of danger, that would be the only time that they would use it. That alerts people that, hey, something's wrong here. Tell a parent, teacher, or caregiver immediately about what happened. Tell your children, it says help your children understand that they need to be wary not just of the traditional idea of strangers, but of anyone who makes them feel uncomfortable, even if it is someone they know. Because honestly, if you look at the statistics, I think it's 90%, somewhere around 90% of abuse occurs. The children know the abuser in 90% of the cases. They know the abuser. They're either a family member or a friend of the family, someone close that the child knows and trusts. That's the abuser, because of course that's who has access to the child. And so that's why it's so important for you to talk to your children and tell them that they need to tell you whether anyone makes them uncomfortable, not just strangers, just anyone. Any person who does anything like that to make them feel uncomfortable. So important. So whether it's family or friends or, whoever it is. And this is, we went through this one as well. Talk to your children about situations they must avoid, like taking any food or medicine from a person who is not a parent, teacher, caregiver, or close friend. Help them understand how to identify a police officer. And take them to the local police station and let them see what a uniform looks like and what a badge looks like. And it says show your children how to make a collect call to home and how to dial 911. And learn what the signs of abuse are so that you will notice if something is going on with your child. Look for bruises, burns, bloody or missing underwear, difficulty with bowel movements or urination, problems with walking or sitting, behavior problems, inappropriate sexual behavior, sore genitals, or anything that just makes you feel there is something amiss. That is so important, you know what I mean? A lot of abuse could be cut short if parents were aware of the situation and actually paying very close attention to their children and looking for, just be on the lookout for this stuff, right? Because most abuse happens within families, which is a fact. It's only about 10% of child sexual abuse is a child sexual predator. The other 90 is normally a family member or a close family friend. So, you might not be thinking that your child has, anyone could have possibly been around your child that could abuse them. So you wouldn't be looking for the signs and symptoms. But when you get the information and you actually become educated, which, in today's world with all the available resources and information out there, there's no excuse for parents to not know this stuff. Honestly, I just think there's no excuse. If you love your children and you want to protect them, then you need to get the education and spend a couple hours every night looking around to find out what kind of good information there is out there, and then spend the time to actually pay attention to your children so that you can be on the lookout for this kind of stuff, right? If your child comes to you and says, tells you that they're being abused, you need to take that 100% seriously and not brush it off and just say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, or they're just making it up, or whatever. You know what I mean? Children do not make up child sexual abuse stories. If a child comes to you and says they're being sexually molested or abused, you better believe it. And you can get that information on any website that talks about child sexual abuse. It is out there. It's a fact. Children do not create these kind of stories. They just can't possibly come up with it. If a child is being abused sexually, they shouldn't even know about sex, and so they shouldn't know about this kind of stuff that's happening to them unless you're allowing them to watch TV programs that they shouldn't be watching, or movies or videos or whatever, or if they've seen something in the home that they shouldn't have seen. Children are very innocent, and they should be allowed to remain that way. They should be allowed to be children, you know what I'm saying? So, they don't generally have the capability of making up sexual abuse stories. So that's the whole issue. And, the FBI and other websites out there, have lots of good information on that on that subject, because it's so important. If your child comes to you and tells you they're being abused in any way, you need to report it, and you need to get that child to safety. Really, they're counting on you. You know what I mean? They're counting on their parents and caregivers to help them, and so that's so important. And you'd be the one person that they should be able to trust, right? And if the parent just shuts them down and says, oh no, I'm not paying attention to that, that's just a lie or whatever, doesn't believe it, the child might very well just withdraw within themselves, not tell anyone at all. The abuse will continue, and that's what happens in so many people's cases, and then the abuse just goes on and on and on. And no, that child never gets any help, and they grow up to be adults, and then they have all kinds of issues regarding adult survivor issues, right? And which costs the North American economy $104 billion annually because of people abusing their children. So this is the whole issue. It costs us all, but mostly it costs us lives. And these children's lives are lost. You know what I mean? They will never ever regain back that innocence. They will never ever regain their childhood back. You know what I mean? They can work through it as an adult and try to regain some of it back, but it will never be what it should have been. And that's just a fact, right? And so that's why I'm doing what I do and standing up for children. And I hope everyone out there will do the same thing in whatever capacity that you can. You know what I mean? Whether it's just doing kind of what I do, which is public advocacy, and getting the word out to people, or if you volunteer at like a children's hospital, or a orphanage, or group homes, or battered women's shelters. They always need help. There's so many people out there that need a hand, right? And so anything we can do to help is great, And I know as far as funds go, it's so hard to come up with funds for just to meet our daily needs, but that's why resources are tight for most people. I know even for myself, extremely tight. So that's why I don't have a whole lot of money, so I just volunteer my time, because I'm like, well, I don't have a whole lot of cash to donate, so I have to get involved somehow. So okay, I'll just give my time, because it's worth it to me to do this, you know what I mean? And so, I hope to be able to go, my goal is to be able to speak nationwide, Canada-wide, public advocacy, and, get out there and start talking in the public masses, really that's my goal. So this is just a beginning, sort of a starting point for me. So, but that's just what I want to do. I want to get out there and spread the word, right, and get these children some help. And, that's just the whole issue. Whatever capacity we can do, that's what counts. Every little thing counts. Because it all adds up to be one big thing to help stop child abuse and help prevent child abuse, right? So it's so important. And it says, also, number 12, that for prevention, get help from the police, social services department, or through a child abuse hotline if you suspect there is a problem. Now, there's all kinds of, in the front of people's phone books. I know in my phone book, in the front, there's all kinds of hotlines for child abuse hotlines, crisis lines. There's family service lines for family violence prevention. There's all kinds of awesome resource, and telephone numbers there for people 24 hours a day to get help, if they suspect abuse, any kind of abuse, elder abuse, domestic violence, just the works. It's all there. So get into the front of your phone book and start checking it out. I know I did, and I went and I pulled that whole front page out, and I posted it in this little phone book thing that I carry around, because I wanted to have the numbers with me. You know what I mean? I thought I should have these numbers on me all the time, because you never know when you're going to need to report abuse, right? So it's so important to have these numbers handy, and to let your kids know that there's kids help phone numbers. They can call a kids help phone line. There's all kinds of kids help phone lines that are out there, and kids can phone those if they if they're being bullied at school, or if they have any issues going on, abuse at home, and they have no one to talk to. Maybe they don't have a family member who's supportive, and quite often that's the case. And so that's why you see children dying every day, at the hands of caregivers or parents, because obviously no one stepped in for that child, and not even a family member or a friend, right? So that's the issue, right? These kids really had nothing, absolutely everything taken away from them, and probably started out with nothing, right? So this is the whole issue. It's just disgusting, and it needs to stop. And the only way we're going to be able to do it really is take a look at society and really start making changes. And these things can happen. It can be done, but it's going to be a lot of work, right? And that's the whole issue. Nobody wants to put that much time or effort into it. But it is going to take everyone's time and everyone's effort to make this happen, because it's a serious problem. It's just going to get worse, because the system is breaking down, and we see more and more people doing the most horrendous acts to their children daily. It's a daily issue. You start looking around at the headlines out there, and you can see that it's just the system's falling apart. And it's always been like that. It's not like abuse has never existed. People have been abusing their kids since there was parents and kids. You know what I mean? This is not something new. It's just the fact that with the education, and the funding that is out there, and the education that is out there, this shouldn't be happening because especially in North America. You know what I mean? North America is really known for protecting human rights and standing up and going to war in countries just to protect human rights, but we can't even protect our own children from their parents. You know what I'm saying? It's a disgraceful, despicable, horrible situation for these children. You know what I mean? So that's the whole issue. People are like, well, how can we stop child abuse? Well, there has to be a way. And if we get enough people thinking about it, enough think tanks going, and get people started on programs like, for instance, the Dream Catchers for Abused Children is going to have. These programs, family to family, peer to peer, summer day camps for children, and it's all going to be free to the families who are going to use it and to the children, because they cannot obviously afford to pay for these programs, and that's why they're in the shape that they're in. There's probably a lot of domestic violence within the home. Maybe the parents aren't working. There might be some substance abuse and maybe some mental problems. And so maybe they've had some issues and they've been brought up on some abuse charges. So then they would be ordered to go to family counseling and get that child some help, right? And so, instead of leaving the child in the home with these people who are not coping, which quite often happens, it happened in my case, there would be Dream Catchers for Abused Children has, come up with a great summer program that they hope to be able to roll out that is going to be nationwide eventually. And it's going to be available in Canada and the United States and hopefully around the world eventually, right? But they got to start in North America, and they got to start right, where they're at. So we're just waiting on funding, and we appreciate any and all help, right? Anything anybody can do to help us get help to these people and to these children, right? Because these children, they will continue to suffer if they stay in the home, and quite often they are left in the home. And it's really quite sad, because if people had some help, it would make all the difference, right? It's proven. There's all kinds of great stuff going on actually down in the States, but it's only in certain schools. It's only in certain neighborhoods. It's not nationwide. And so there's only a small handful of people actually getting any help or any aid. And they did prove that these programs actually worked when they went in and worked with the families and got the families some help, whether it's a single-parent home or doesn't matter, a married couple or just, a common law couple, makes no difference. So they go in and they stay with these parents until the parents can cope and actually not hurt their child. And they won't walk away from the case until they know for a fact that child will not be hurt. And because what they do is they stay with that child all the way through until age 18, and they actually make sure that child is okay. Now, they don't live in the home, but they have one-on-one contact with these people all the way through. And what happens is builds these families up from a series of destructive events. Maybe there was job loss or health issues, and then all of a sudden the parents can't cope, and they start, abusing the kids, and then of course the kids are upset because they love their parents, and yet how could they be treating them this way? You know what I mean? And this happens like all the time. This is like standard. And so if we could get the family some help, you know what I mean, and get that child some help, then of course the whole family is healed, right? And that really would be the best case scenario in every case, but obviously in some cases it won't be possible, because there are some people that are so mentally sick, that they probably would never be able to be a good parent. And in that case, the courts would have to decide that. But the issue is there are some good people out there who do abuse their children because they have no coping skills. They were not taught them as children themselves. Maybe they were abused themselves, or they might have just really had a bad run of situations happen to them, and they actually go into some sort of like a post-traumatic stress disorder situation, and then they can't cope, and they find it just too hard to raise their child, and so they start lashing out at their child. This sort of thing happens to people all the time. That's why families are breaking down, because they're not getting any support, and they can't support each other within, and then there's no support coming from the outside, so it's just a big snowball of destruction and chaos, and really, who pays the price? But the children do. The adults really should have it together enough that they should be able to cope and help their child get through life, but that's just not the case all the time, right? So we see too much of that. But it's unfortunate, because these people, probably didn't start out to want to hurt their children. You know what I mean? Now, some of them, obviously we see some of these reports, and you just know that these people are sick, and they just had no business having children, right? And if they had the child, they should just give it up for adoption. That way, the child has a chance for a happy life. That's what I always say to people. There's so many people out there that would love to have a child and can't have a child. So, instead of these people killing their children, they should just take them in and give them up for adoption and just tell them, like, I can't look after this child. I don't want to hurt this child, but I don't want this child. And let the child have the opportunity for a good life. And I mean, obviously there's problems within the foster care systems. This is what we have to address as a society, and it is not going to go away until we start standing up and actually start getting busy finding out ways to make this happen. See, the generation that's in there today, they're all going to have to retire someday. And then it's going to be up to the people coming, behind us to pick up the slack. And so, every single one of us standing up today will make a difference, right? Because eventually the people that are sitting in these organizations are all going to have to move on. They're going to get older and they're going to retire, or they're just going to get burned out and they're going to leave the position. And so in behind them comes a whole other group with different ideas, and different thinking, different ways of thinking. And you better believe there's going to be some awesome changes. You just better believe it, because there's some awesome people out there advocating for child rights and to stop child abuse. And I know quite a few of them, just from doing what I do. And I'm so happy to stand with them. Let me tell you, there's so many people in Australia and the UK and the United States and Canada that are doing some awesome work. And I know there is around the world as well, in other countries. I actually know child advocates who live in many different countries around the world. So, it's happening. But, the sooner we can get it done, the better, because we could save these children from a lifetime of misery. You know what I'm saying? Or we could save their lives. 5 children, on average, statistically, 5 children will be killed every day in the United States alone from a parent or caregiver due to child abuse, right? Every 10 seconds a child will be abused, or every 13 seconds a child will be abused in the United States. I mean, that's horrible. That's absolutely crazy, and it's sad, because when you think about it, if these are just numbers and statistics, but what I think about is that baby or that little child. I think about those kids, and I put myself in their shoes just long enough to think about what they're going through, what they've been through, and what they're going to go through, right, if we don't get them some help. And so that's why, there's many that we won't be able to help. We won't get there in time. And that breaks my heart. But you know what? We can only do what we can day by day. But the whole issue is the sooner we can get it done, the better. And we need to, all of us, stand up and raise our voices and shout at the top of our lungs that we're not going to stand by and let child abuse continue. You know what I mean? We all need to get very angry. What makes me angry is the people that are not angry about child abuse. Because it seems to me like they're saying it's okay. So in other words, if you don't speak out against child abuse, you're basically saying that it's okay. It's kind of like a sexual predator. If you don't speak out and say that a child sexual predator is wrong because of what, especially convicted, I'm talking a convicted child sexual predator who's assaulted a child. If you don't stand up and say that is wrong, then you're basically saying, oh, that was okay. Right? There's no such thing as just riding the fence. Whatever you don't speak up for or against, the other side is exactly what you're representing. So that's the sad part. It makes me really sad that people, just ignore the whole issue. And I mean, hey, I was doing it too until about 3 years ago. So this is the issue, and it's understandable. But I hope that everybody that's tuning into my shows will find it, some sort of sense of empowerment to go out there and just do whatever you can to try to stop child abuse and help prevent child abuse, and especially to look around at the children in your own lives. And that's where we have to start, right, within our own homes, and see if you can help them out, right, and make sure that they're not being abused, right? So we have about a minute left. I'm so thankful for everybody tuning in. I really appreciate it. I've got over 5,000 shows listened to. I just can't believe it. I checked my numbers the other day, and it was over 5,000. So thank you so much for tuning in. I can't thank you enough. I don't know who you all are listening to my shows, but there's hundreds of you. I thank you for being here with me and supporting me, for being my friend, and for standing up for children and stopping child abuse. I thank you, and I just, I'm just keeping you all in my heart, and in my prayers. and I'm so happy to have you here alongside me, as part of this mission to stop child abuse, and I can't tell you how much it means. So thank you so much for everything. And I'll be back on, let's see, tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock a.m. for One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. And then tomorrow night, be sure and catch Elizabeth Roberts-Brawley on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio at www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. And that's 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Elizabeth Roberts-Brawley Show. She's the Southern Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. I hope you will tune in and check that out. That's going to be a great show. So have a great night, everybody. Take really good care of yourselves, and just keep reaching out, keep holding on, and we'll see you again next time. Bye bye.